One day, you are on your way to go horseback riding with a family friend. You're riding in the car, you're chilling, everything is so exciting. And the next thing you know, a white light comes down, the car starts rumbling, and poof, you're taken by aliens. Before we get into today's video, I do want to let you guys know that this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Please remember to be kind to everybody, everywhere, in your everyday life, in your home, in the grocery store, and especially in the comment section down below. Please do not show hate to anybody, anywhere. Good morning, my lovelies, my beauties, my friends. My name is Christina and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, thank you so much for clicking on this video. I really hope that you will subscribe, stick around, take a chance on hearing some things that I have to say. And if you are a returning subscriber, y'all already know. Y'all are my babies. So good morning, good morning, good morning. How is everybody doing today? I hope you all are having an amazing day. So it is Story Time Friday. Story Time Friday. It's going to be a good one. Now, you guys have requested this story a bunch of times. The reason why I haven't done it yet is because there are so many layers to this. This is a wild one. This story is so far out there, you almost wouldn't believe that it's true. But it is true. Yes, this is true. Today's video is going to be based off of the documentary Abducted in Plain Sight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the whole entire story for you guys. I'm going to tell you guys every little detail that I know of in my own words. And then at the end, I'm going to let you guys know what I think. And then I have some questions for y'all. I want to know how y'all feel about a few things. Okay, so stick around until the end. If you guys don't already know me though, hi, my name is Christina. I do have a second channel, which is Casually Christina. I do like daily vlogs and it's just a good casual time over there. I also have a Patreon. My Patreon is for 18 and up. Over there we do some wild story times. We go live over there. It's just a good time if you would like to join. I also have a podcast with new episodes coming soon. You guys just hang tight. And then I also have an Instagram where you guys can kind of keep up with me on a daily basis, and that's fun as well. All of those are always linked down in the description box if you want to check me out. All right, let's get into this story. This story takes place in the 1970s in good old Idaho. There was this family, a mom and a dad and three beautiful little girls. The mom's name was Mary Ann and the dad's name was Bob. They had like the picture perfect family. They went to church every Sunday. They ate their meals together at the dinner table as a family every single evening. The father, Bob, he owned a floral shop. He was a florist, so he had like flowers and stuff everywhere. He actually owned the shop for 40 years. His wife, Mary Ann, she stayed home. She did all the cooking and the cleaning and spent a lot of time with her girls. When Bob, the dad, would come home in the evening, the three girls would run up to him and wrap their arms around him. Daddy, Daddy. And it was just such a welcoming, loving, warm, very tight-knit family. The sisters were especially close. Two of the little girls actually shared a room together and they would lay in the bed at nighttime and talk and giggle. And, you know, this is just the type of family that a lot of people would love and dream and want to have. They lived in a really safe neighborhood. I mean, they never had to lock the doors. They could leave the door wide open. Everybody knew everybody. When Bob would get off of work, he'd be driving, waving at the neighbors. When Mary Ann would go out to check the mailbox, she would talk to her neighbors. It was just a cozy environment for everybody. All of the kids felt loved, very close with their family. They just had a great life. Their one daughter in particular, Jan, she was the most lively one. She had an outgoing personality, big, beautiful smile. She would light up a room. She just loved talking to people and was very close with her parents and her little friends at church, and everybody knew and loved Jan. Mary Ann was actually part of the choir in their church. She would help like direct the chorus and stuff like that. And one Sunday, while she was up on the stage directing the chorus, she looked down and she saw a family that she had never seen before. It was a father, a mother, and 5 kids. And she saw them, you know, singing and clapping clapping along to the music. So whenever church service was over, she went down and she introduced herself. She introduced herself to the husband and the wife and the 5 adorable little kids. And she particularly took interest in the father, the husband, and his name was Robert Berchtold. Now, Mary Ann, she thought it was kind of a weird dynamic between the couple because Robert was super like charismatic and friendly and smiley and just like somebody you could kind of really want to be around. But his wife was really shy and quiet and reserved and, didn't say too much, but she didn't think too much of it. She thought that they were a lovely family. The two families quickly became friends, and then they started coming over to Mary Ann and Bob's house all the time. I mean, their 3 little girls played with their 5 kids, and they became best friends. The 2 dads, Robert and Bob, they had so much in common, and before you know it, they were like carpooling together and hanging out all the time, and they were just all super close. One day, Bob came home and he noticed that he had like a fruit basket, a big, beautiful fruit basket that Robert, who they called B, just sent him. And he thought, man, like what a nice guy to just send me a fruit basket. Now, this is back in the 1970s, okay? So the fruit baskets, although I would love a fruit basket now, yeah, you know what I'm saying? I love me some fruit. But back then, it was just like the thing to do, right? And so he comes home, he sees this big, beautiful fruit basket from his new friend, and he was like, wow, we are really blessed to know these people. Robert became almost like a second father to Mary Ann and Bob's kids. He would come over to their house, he would pick the little girls up, swing them around. He would get on the floor and play puzzles with them. He even gave their daughter, Jan, the nickname Dolly. He started becoming really particularly close with Dolly or Jan. And, at first they kind of got a weird vibe, but they're like, you know what? He's like their second dad. He's like family. So they brushed it off and they kept on going. They started taking family vacations together. I mean, you guys, they were doing the most. Well, one day, Robert calls Mary Ann. Now, they've been friends for a while now. He calls Mary Ann, knowing Mary Ann, she's a stay-at-home mom, okay? The kids are gone to school, and her husband's working at the flower shop. So he calls Mary Ann because he knows she's at home, and he's like, listen, I forgot my lunch. Like, I'm super hungry. Could you bring me a sandwich or something? And she's thinking, sure, of course, I can do that. So she brings him some lunch. Before you know it, he's asking her more and more to bring him lunch, and she's doing it. She's leaving her house during the day to bring Robert lunch while he's at work. Mary Ann, who at this point had been married for about 13 years to her husband, Bob, said that Robert was just so charismatic. He had that big smile, and, he would touch her when he talked, and he said all the right things. She started getting kind of butterflies in her stomach when she would bring him his lunch, and Robert could tell. Robert started telling her how beautiful she was and how she had a beautiful body and how she had the most beautiful legs, and she would get flustered. She was like, these are the things that her husband was no longer telling her, but now he's telling her with his charismatic, ways and his twinkle in his eye. And before you know it, they were sitting in a car on a day that she had brought him lunch. He reaches over and he touches her hand while he's telling her how beautiful she is, and he leans in and he kisses her. They start kissing in the car and they make out. She loses track of time. He's kind of groping her and she's flustered, but she's like, she didn't know what to do. At this point, she's actually starting to like him. So she goes on about her day and she just kind of tries to block it out. At this point, Mary Ann, she just can't stop thinking about Robert. She's thinking about him all day, every day, and that feeling that he gave her, that butterflies or that like chemistry, that attraction you get when you're in a new relationship. But she's trying to just be a good wife and a good mom and ignore it. Well, not long after that, Robert shows up at Bob's store. You guys remember I told you guys he was a florist. He had a flower store. He shows up there and he's all flustered and he's like, I need you. I need to talk to you. Like, I need you. Like, can you jump in the car with me and go with me? And, Bob is like, yeah, sure, of course. So he jumps in the car with him. They drive off. They drive down this like quiet road, and Robert starts confessing to him that he hates his wife and that he's not attracted to her like that and that he just needs some relief. And Bob is sitting in the passenger seat like, what are you talking about? So Bob looks over and he sees that Robert is around. And he's like, can you just please like relieve my stress for me? And Bob is like, he feels bad for him or something. And he's like, I guess I guess so. And Robert tells him, oh, come on, just help me out here. This is just kid stuff. So Bob reaches over with his hand and he relieves him. Now, at this point, you guys, things are getting weird. Now, us from the outside looking in, we're like, okay, hold up. Now, you're a married man. You've got 5 kids, okay? 1 minute you're with your friends. Y'all are all friends, right? You're with the wife. And then the next day you're with the husband. Like, what's up? What's going on? But they didn't all see it like this at the time. We seen it like this. Okay. Let's keep going here. So a while later, Robert comes to Marianne and says, hey, I want to take Jan horseback riding. Y'all remember I told you guys that Robert took a particular interest in Jan, and whom he nicknamed Dolly. And Marianne's like, I don't know. I don't know if I should, Bob will be home later. And he's like, listen, I promise you, I'm just going to pick her up from the music classes. She's going to love horseback riding. She's going to have the time of her life. I'm going to pick her up from her music lessons, and I will have her back home before your husband gets home. And I'm just going to take her to ride these horses. So she's like, well, yeah, I guess so. So she tells him, yeah, it's okay. Bob goes and picks Jan up from her musical lessons. He tells her, you need to take this pill right here for your allergies. We're going to be out here around these horses. You need to have this medication. She takes the pill, she puts it in her mouth, and she doesn't remember much after that. She goes to sleep. Starts getting late, and Jan's mom is getting really, really nervous, Marianne. She's like, oh my gosh. The next thing you know, Bob gets home. She has to tell him. He's upset that why is she gone with him horseback riding? 9 p.m. rolls around. No sight of them, okay? The next day, Saturday rolls around. Now, at this point, at first Friday, this was on a Friday night. Friday night, they're thinking, okay, maybe they broke down. There was no cell phones back then in the 70s. Maybe they broke down, maybe this, maybe that. The next day comes, and they're like, we're about to call the police. Like, where are they at? Like, are they okay? Like, what's going on? So they call Bob's wife, and Bob's wife says, do not call the police. They're probably just, whatever. And so they're like, okay, we're going to hold out. They didn't want to make a big stink. They didn't want to get him in trouble. They didn't think he would do anything to their daughter, but like, where are they? The next day rolls around on Sunday, and they're like, I don't care. We're calling the police. They've been gone for 2 days. Like, where are they at? So they call the police, and they get in touch with the FBI. Investigators come out and start questioning them so they can go look for them. Well, Bob's wife tells the investigators they actually have an RV way far out somewhere. So the investigators go out to look for the RV. They notice that the RV is gone. So they're like, wait a minute, what's up with this? Like, where is the RV? Where are they at? The investigators come back to talk to the family, and they're like, we don't expect foul play. Like, they've got to just be something happen. Like, the investigators are trying to convince the family that he had taken their daughter. The K word that ends with a nap, the K-nap, that one. They're trying to convince the family, and they're just not believing it. Like, this is their friend, right? Both parents are knowing that they've had some sort of relationship with this man, but neither one of the parents know that the other one did, okay? So there's all of this confusion going on, and they both feel like they have this like really trusting relationship with this man who has been in their family for a while now, and he wouldn't just take their daughter, or would he? The investigators are looking at the parents like, you guys need to wake up. He's been gone for 5 days at this point with your daughter. What do you think happened? The RV's gone. What do you think happened? Investigators later on the side of a road way out somewhere find his abandoned Ford. Now, when they went up to the Ford, they saw that the keys were in it. They saw that the window was busted, and there was some blood on the window and up on the dashboard. When they looked closer at the car, though, they noticed that the window was busted from the inside out, not the outside in. And there was tire tracks and footprints. So they're going, okay, this is obviously staged. If somebody had gotten them and busted the window, they would bust it from the outside in to get into them. You know what I mean? And then when they saw the tire tracks, they realized that it was the RV. So he had obviously set all this up. Now, the investigators, their little brains are going. The family is so worried and upset for Jan. They don't know where she is. And one of Jan's little sisters, she was walking through the hallways, and she went into Jan's room, and she saw her dad, Bob, laying in Jan's bed just crying and sobbing. She said she had never seen her dad cry like that. He was an emotional man that was in touch with his feelings, but he just didn't cry like that. He was just so upset. They were so worried about Jan and where she had went and where he had taken her. Investigators got in touch with Robert's brother. Now, Robert's brother told the investigators some interesting stuff. He told them that Robert had always kind of had a fixation for little girls, and that when he was a boy, that he used to mess with his little sister when Robert was 12 and his little sister was 6. And his brother was like, y'all need to be looking for something. Now, at that time, back in the 70s, the investigators had never really heard of those types of predators. You know what I mean? The chomos or whatever. I'm trying to say it without saying it because of YouTube, but they had never really heard of it. So to them, it was like a foreign, like, what do you mean a grown man would want to run away with a child? Like, that's crazy. Like, but nevertheless, we have to find this little girl. What happened to Jan while she was gone? Well, she kind of dozed in and out, and the next thing you know, she woke back up again, and she heard this sound in her ear. It sounded like this, like an alien, like this really weird sounds, and it was giving her messages and telling her what she needed to do, and she's doesn't know where she is or what's going on, and she's hearing this box and this sound. Now, you guys got to remember, she's a little girl. She's like 12 years old, okay? The box starts telling her that she is actually part alien. I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh. It sounds funny now in 2020 to hear this, but you guys got to remember, back in 1970, there was no Google, okay? There was no, you can just look stuff up to see if it's true or not, or at least get an idea. You know, like I said, they didn't even know about like predators like that then. So like she didn't know, and she was a baby girl. I mean, you guys got to think, for those of y'all that got kids that watch television or maybe watch YouTube and they believe everything that they see, like that's how it was back then, okay? So this voice was telling her that she was part alien, that she was birthed to her mother. Her mother was her real mother, but her father wasn't her real father, that she was implanted. Now, she grew up in church, okay? She knew the story about Jesus and Mary and Joseph and how, you know, Mary had gotten pregnant and it was, you know, the father, the son, you know, put all of that. She knew the story. So she thought, wow, like, this is my calling. And this alien voice that was coming out of this box, it was a recording, was telling her that she had to save the alien planet. And the way to save the alien planet is she had to get with her companion, the chosen companion that would be revealed to her. And she had to have a baby by the time she was 16. But if she didn't do this, that her little sister Karen would immediately go blind, and she would be vaporized, and her family would be offed and all of that, and that her sister Susan, I told you guys she had 2 sisters, her sister Susan would have to fulfill the mission and have to do it anyway. So she immediately thought like, oh my gosh, I have to do this. So as she looked around in the camper, the RV, she saw Robert. And Robert was laying there, and he had like blood on him, and he looked like he was out, and she starts shaking him like, Robert, like, are you okay? And he like comes to, and she's like, what happened to you? And he's like, I don't know. Me and you were just driving, and I was taking you to, you know, go ride horses, and this big light came down, and the car started rumbling and shaking, and we were abducted by UFOs, and then now we're here. And then she thought, oh, now I really believe it. Now you guys got to remember, this is the grown man. This is like the second father to her. This is the guy that she trusted, that came in and swooped her up and picked her, you know, swung her around and took family pictures of her, and, you know, just was like always around their family. And now all of a sudden, like, he's telling her this story, and she heard it for herself, so she's believing it. Then she started putting 2 and 2 together. He is the companion. He is the one she has to have a baby by. And so she starts believing that, and she starts telling him, listen, we have to do this in order to save, you know, my alien planet and my family. And he's like, okay, I guess so. I guess I'll agree. At this point, they were in Mexico. He had drove her to Mexico and married her there then. Now, back then, I don't know the way it is now, but back then in Mexico, you only had to be 12 years old to get married. So he married her. Yes. After she was gone for 35 days, now living in Mexico, married under the Mexican law, He calls his brother and says, listen, you need to call Marianne and tell her that like she needs to drop all of the charges and everything and give me permission to come back. Otherwise, you'll never see Jan again. Marianne was obviously so upset. Her and her husband, they called the FBI agents and they told him, so they tapped the phone calls. That way they could hear what he was saying the next time that they talked to him. And of course they're thinking, we'll never do that. We will never in a million years drop these charges. You need to bring our daughter back to the States. Well, when he called back and the FBI had the phone calls traced, they were able to trace where he was in a hotel in Mexico. They got a hold of the Mexican police and the Mexican police kicked the door in and got him and Jan out. Jan said she remembered like being put in like this van and like, you know, she was moving around a lot. I mean, and then they took them to the cell, which was like a Mexican prison, and they separated them. Well, Robert took his gold ring that he had and he gave it to one of the guards and he said, let me talk to her and I will give you this gold ring. And so he did. So the guard allowed him to speak with her and he was like, listen, you cannot tell your parents about any of this. Just tell them that I made a mistake and that we came here to have fun and go parasailing and all that. You can't tell your parents anything. If you tell them about the mission, you know what's going to happen. You cannot tell them that we got married. You cannot tell them anything like that. And she agreed because she wanted to fulfill the mission. She wanted to protect her family. So she knew she wouldn't tell him. And he said, listen, he said, Zethra and Zeta were the names of the aliens that were speaking to her, right? He said, they said that you cannot get close to any other male, not even your father. Do not get close to him or the whole mission will just be destroyed and you know what's going to happen. So all of this weight is on this poor 12-year-old little girl, thinking she's got to save this planet, save her family, save the world. She was terrified, but she was obedient. Her family, her mom and her dad flew to Mexico to get her. And they said that when they saw her, like she just started running to them and hugged them and she was so excited. But like within a few seconds, she just kind of got withdrawn. And I think that that's because she was like super excited to see her families, but then she remembered the mission. Her dad said that the whole flight home, she wouldn't sit by him, she wouldn't speak to him, and as soon as she got home, she went straight to her room. She was withdrawn. She was not the same Jan. She was a totally different little girl when she came home than when she left. Jan's dad told his mom, I think our problems are far from over. The next thing you know that they indicted B and they brought him back. They were getting ready to go to trial and getting ready to do all of this like court stuff from the whole like him taking her and all of that. And his wife calls Marianne and says, you need to drop all of these charges. You need to say that you knew that he was with us or that you think it was a mistake or anything. And if you don't, we're going to tell the press and everybody about the relationship that you had with my husband and your husband had with my husband. And Jan's dad was terrified. Like he was the most scared. He was like, I don't want people knowing that, you know, my church, everything. Like we have to drop the charges. So they went down to the courthouse. They filed paperwork saying that he didn't do it and that it was all a big misunderstanding and a big mistake. Well, the court was still going to press charges. They still wanted to. They're like, this is nuts. Like you people, like what is wrong with you guys? Like we're still going to press these charges. Well, when court happened, they had no witnesses. So he took a plea bargain. And with the plea bargain, he got 45 days in jail and federal probation. Can you believe that Let's get through the story. Later after that, he would come back to their church. Now the church, everybody in the church, it's all about forgiveness, right? Everything's about forgiveness. So they all forgave him because you guys got to remember that the family now have told the police and everybody that it was just a big misunderstanding. It was just a big misunderstanding. So the church has forgiven him. They're all patting him on the back. They're welcoming him back. And they're, saying, oh, he was just sick and, something happened. And now he's back in their lives again, back around Jan. One night, while Jan was asleep in her room, she woke up and heard the alien voices again. They were telling her to not deter from the mission. She needed to obey the rules. I don't know how in the world he got that box in their house, but he did, to play these tapes about these aliens for her to hear. She would get love letters from him. She would write him love letters. She said she started to make that switch from looking at him like a father figure to really looking at him like a husband now. She started confessing her love to him to her mom and telling her mom that she wanted to marry him and she wanted to be with him. Of course, her mom was taken back. I mean, she had had a relationship with him too. And now her little child daughter is saying she wants to marry him. One day, Bob called and Jan's mother, Mary Ann, answered the phone and they were talking. And she goes, "Why do you want to marry Jan?" And he said, "If you come meet me at my motorhome, we will talk about it. Like, just come over here and talk about it." And her curiosity got the best of her and she went to the motorhome to meet him. Well, when she did, he started putting on that old charismatic act with her and they ended up being intimate. Can you believe this? She started feeling like she was in love with him. Over the next 8 months, Jan's mother, Mary Ann, was sneaking off to meet him. Yes, after everything that had happened, and getting intimate and being with him. Well, next thing you know, he decides he's going to call her husband and confess everything to her husband. Of course, Bob was so upset. He was crying. He lost his mind. He told her he wanted a divorce. He got the kids. He took the kids. He went and filed for a divorce, and he filed for I don't know what you would call it, an eviction notice or whatever, to make her get out of the house because he said she was putting her own kids in danger and breaching their safety, which I do agree with. And he told the kids that they were going to get a divorce. And of course, the 3 little girls are crying. They're so upset. Now their parents are going to get a divorce. And she's in love with this guy that is taken her daughter to Mexico and married her in Mexico. Mary Ann came to her senses and she knew that she did not want to run away, and she begged her husband to forgive her, and he did. Robert again moves away. He's still calling. And so Jan is now picking fights with her family. She's completely withdrawn. She will not talk to her dad. She wants to be with him now. Again, okay, now it's back to this. She's wanting to marry him, which was the whole time, but then the mother kept getting in the mix. And of course, the family is saying no. She's saying, "I want to go live with him. Like, I want to go and live with Robert." And the family is saying, "No, you're absolutely not going to go live with him." A couple weeks later, after all of this mess was going on, they went into Jan's room and they found a note. The note basically said that since they wouldn't let her be with him and do the right thing, that she was going to run away and all of that there good stuff. So, of course, they called the police. And the police come and they go and investigate Robert, and she's not with Robert. So now everybody's looking for Jan. And they're watching Robert, but they don't see him with her. She was gone for a while. Time kept going on and on. And the FBI they had surveillance on Robert's trailer, whatever that he was living in, 24 hours a day. They had taps on his phone, everything. They could not find her. And Robert kept calling Mary Ann, the mom, and Bob, and calling, "Have you heard from her yet? Have you heard from her?" And of course they're saying, "No, we don't know where she is, da. Well, one day the investigators, they were watching him and they saw him walk to a payphone. And you guys, if you guys were around when they had payphones, do they even have payphones anymore? I don't know. They used to have these phone books. Well, he opened up the phone book and there was a number written on it. And he put the number in, he made a phone call. He was on the phone for about 10 or 15 minutes and he walked away, but he left that book open. Well, the investigators went over and they dialed the number and they called that number. It was actually an all-girls boarding school, in another state far away. So the FBI agents go to the boarding school and they're saying "We don't have her. We don't have a Jan by that name. We don't have that, da. They kept on and on and on with them. And eventually they admitted that they had a new little girl named Jan Tobler. She was under a different name. And the dad that brought her there told the boarding school that he was a CIA agent and that he had escaped from Lebanon because they were having a bunch of stuff going on in Lebanon at the time, and that he had fled from there, but that people were after him and his daughter and that they needed to protect her, and that if anybody came here to say that they were looking for her, that they were really just trying to get her to get to him. It was a whole mess, and crazy how much he manipulated everybody around him. He literally manipulated everybody. They were able to bring Jan back home then. And it was wild. Jan came back kicking and screaming. She knew she had to complete this mission. She had to have this baby by the time she was 16 in order to save everybody. But at this point, the family was this is just not going to happen. you cannot be around him. Now, they didn't know anything about the whole alien story and stuff because she wasn't allowed to tell them. Otherwise, the whole mission would be null and void, I guess you could say. They arrested Robert, put him in jail. Not long after he was in jail, somebody came and burned down Bob's 40-year-old business, that florist I was telling you guys about. The whole family was so upset. You guys, they had worked so hard on that business, but what had happened was, while Robert was in jail, he manipulated 2 guys that he was in jail with to come and burn down his business and told him that he would give them $1,000 a week for the rest of their life. Those guys did end up getting arrested and went to prison for arson, but they were never able to pin that on Bob because there was really no proof. When he was in court, he just started talking about, how he was raised on an isolated ranch and he was abused by the help, and that's why he was infatuated with Jan and all of this stuff, but the court wasn't too much buying it. As Jan got older, she noticed that Bob was losing interest in her. She was no longer a little girl. When she turned 15, she kind of started to really question the whole alien thing. She knew she still had to complete this mission, but she's getting older. As she got 15, she's having more life experiences. She's with her friends. She still hasn't told anybody, but she's starting to question it. One time she went to this camp, this drama camp, and this little boy liked her. And she kind of liked him, but she couldn't have those feelings because if she liked any other guy or really talked to any other guy, the aliens had already told her what was going to happen. Well, one day he bought her an ice cream and she threw the ice cream down and ran and cried and she was freaking out, worried about her parents, oh my gosh, is something going to happen? Now, as her 16th birthday was coming along, she started really starting to panic. At this point, it's my birthday's tomorrow. She's losing her mind here. She's freaking out. She's not pregnant. She hasn't completed the mission. She just don't know what to do. When her birthday hit, although she was super anxious, she realized that nothing had happened. She didn't vaporize. Her sister Karen didn't go blind. Her dad didn't fall out. They didn't take her sister Susan. And she realized the whole thing was a lie. She confessed it to her best friend and then eventually her sister and what she told her parents. And everybody was so upset. Everything started making sense then to why she wanted to be with this man when she was 12 and 13 years old, and why, how he controlled her and how he manipulated the whole family. And of course the family felt so dumb, the mom and the dad, because they had been manipulated by him too. And now they speak, and they wrote this book. If you guys want to check it out. And she ended up actually going to court and putting a restraining order on him because as she was speaking, while she was an adult, she's in her 30s and 40s, he started showing up to where she was. Even one time, the last time that all of this happened, he showed up to where she was after she had put a restraining order on him, and they arrested him because he violated the restraining order, and they were going to send him to prison. And so drank a bunch of White Russians, took a lot of medication, and didn't wake up. And when she was asked if she forgave him, because she's older now, she said forgiveness is a really tricky thing. She said forgiveness is about myself. She said she learned to forgive by helping her parents forgive themselves. So they are all still very much together and love each other, but that is a story. Okay, so after all of that, good Lord, these are the questions that I have for y'all. I want to know what y'all think. Now, I am the type of person that wants to give the benefit of the doubt to everybody. I love to look at things from every different angle. There's a plane going over. You guys don't trip. I don't want to be so judgmental to everybody. Of course, we're watching this and we're going, WTF, right? What the flip-flop, right? How? But you guys got to keep in mind that this was back in the 70s. There was no Google. There was no, television. Now on television, we've got Lifetime Movie Network. We've got all of this stuff. They did not have that back then. So unless you had this something like this happen to your family or somebody that you knew, you didn't know of this. Just like I was telling you guys earlier in the video, the FBI agents had never even heard of a chomo. You know what I mean? They were like, what do you mean a grown adult would want to be with? You know what I mean? They didn't, even the FBI agents, they had heard of stranger danger, but they didn't hear of this. So as tough as it is now, with all of the knowledge that we have, I want to give the family a little bit of a benefit of the doubt in the beginning. Everything after that, come on. Now, also at the same time, they have had to forgive themselves. And I do think that them coming out and doing this television show or this documentary, they didn't have to do that. They did not have to show their faces. They did not have to be so open and so honest and let it all out raw. And that alone, like, I give them major props for. It takes a lot, okay? It takes a lot to reveal your deepest, darkest regrets and secrets on the internet or online for people to see. And I'm just now realizing that this is what I'm doing. What is wrong with me? Why do I do that? No, I'm just kidding. But no, so I give them respect, and they made a lot of bad decisions. A lot. The very first time with the horseback riding, mom, excuse me, ma'am, why in the world would a man with 5 kids of his own need to come and pick up your daughter to take her horse? He got 5 kids. And where was his wife at? You know what I mean? Well, where she's all hush-hush with this. She knew something. And you want to know what? After, all the court stuff and whatever, and they started speaking out about this, and 6 other women came forward and said that this man did this to them too. And actually, at one point, he had went to prison for a year. See, also back then, now there's computers. If somebody goes to prison in California, you can see it in Florida. It wasn't like that back then. Back then, if you did something in California, you could move to Florida or Alabama or Georgia and nobody would know about it. Like, the internet and the computers have really advanced us in countless and priceless of ways. But like I said, I try not to judge, but as a mom, I just feel like, wasn't that weird to you? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Also, I do have to remember that my experiences are different than their experiences. So I'm a very protective mom. I'm very like, excuse me. No. You know what I mean? So I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Would that have been a red flag? Some of my older generation that watches me on here, my wisdom-filled friends that are here, how did you feel back in the 70s and the 80s? Was it, you know what I'm saying? Would that have been a little strange, or was that just me? Okay, let's keep going here. The first time she was gone for weeks, and he convinced them to drop the charges because they threatened them. They threatened the mom and dad with exposing them. Now, see, that right there is when it became selfish. That is when the parents decided that our reputation is more important than our child. No, you should have bit the bullet then and admitted your wrongdoings and protected your baby. But you didn't, and you was wrong for that. I'm not going to beat them in the ground because I know they feel bad, but that's just, we got to call a spade here, so. Another thing that I didn't mention to you guys in the video was, remember how I told you guys that the 2 girls shared a room? Jan and her sister shared a room. He came in and he convinced Jan that she was too old to share a room. She was a big girl now. She didn't need to share a room. And he came in and built a wall to separate her and her sister in that room, in her house, a literal wall, so he could go in there in her room with her. And the parents, let's keep going here. They found out later that the allergy meds that he kept giving Jan was sleeping pills. Like, duh, I think we all realize that now. But, they didn't know that. There's just so much wrong. So this is the problem. And he even admitted it. The dad, Bob, in the documentary admitted it. There were so many red flags. There wasn't just 1 red flag, 2 red flags. It was boom, 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 boom. Red flags was hitting them in the face, and they were just ignoring them because the mom and dad had their own intentions in mind. To me, it was not about protecting Jan. It was about protecting them, and that's why they were wrong. I do believe that they have learned very big lesson, but at the time they just wanted to protect themselves, and that's why they were wrong. Okay, so I think that the daughter Jan, who is now a very grown woman now, She is a remarkable human being to not only survived all this, but to also be speaking out about it, because it does sound like a crazy story. She's been called a liar. She's been called every other kind of thing. People have tried to, especially him. When she was doing books, he was going out passing out flyers saying like, who would believe this crazy story? Aliens, whatever. But it was true. It's her story. So I don't know, y'all. Did y'all see the documentary? That's the first question I want to know, other than the other questions I've asked y'all. How do you feel about it? Who is to blame? Okay. Do you forgive the parents, or do you feel like, nah, that's unforgivable? This one stresses me out. All right, my loves, let me know what you guys think about this story and your opinions in the comment section down below. As always, my loves, please do not forget to like this video. It's a free way that you can help your girl out. And until next time, I love you guys so, so, so very much. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Search, but you stay